Are you stuck at like around $2,000 a day on Facebook? You just can't seem to bust that through to the next piece. You're at $1,000. You're at 1,500. When you push past that, it doesn't seem to work. You're chasing all these different things. I'm gonna get down to the bottom of it today. How can we get ourselves over that $2,000 limit on Facebook, which seems the level of demarcation for so many businesses? Today, we're gonna get you past 2,000. We're gonna get you to $5, $8, $10,000 solutions. That's what we're gonna solve for, and it's gonna come on the back of your architecture and strategy. Let's go. First off, I got a new rig. Let me know what you think about it. I got this brand new Rode microphone. Holla! And I'd love to thank Dennis Yu for recommending that, as well as Sean Cannell for the camera. Thank you very much, Think Media, for that. If you enjoy these videos and you are really getting down and some value out of it, I would love it if you could share it with somebody else, or you can subscribe so you don't miss new ones. Comment if you have questions. Honestly, the platform really appreciates it when we get more views. And I really appreciate being able to help more people. The more people we can reach, the more people we can help. And honestly, getting more people confidence and success is what I'm all about. More time in your day, more money in your pocket, more confidence in what you're doing, because you legitimately deserve that success. With that being said, let's dive into it today. If you're stuck below $2,000 daily spend on Facebook, how do we get past it? So I really want to cover this in 3 sections today. So first part we're going to cover is architecture. Now, you've heard me talk about this a lot. Legitimately talk. I've been talking about it for years, and it's great to see some of the experts in the space now starting to adopt, like, hey, there's this thing that we should be doing now. If it's been weeks, months, or years since they blocked me for preaching it at them when they were trying to solve problems or sell alternate solutions, I will not take that down. Now, basically, I'm glad that this is what people are really starting to preach. So we're going to get into that. We're also going to get into ultimately testing models, because one of the biggest issues that people have is the inability to test efficiently. And we're going to do that as well. Go over that in this video. The last thing that we're going to cover here in a more simplified version, because we cannot dive nearly deep into it as much as we want to, but it's ultimately about picking a lane. And this is a little bit about the architecture, but it's also about how we're getting into our optimization. And that's a big piece. So first thing we're going to cover here is the architecture. Sorry, I'm taking notes. Usually I have this all, but now that I got a new rig, like this is day one. I got both of my pens going today. This will be fun. So anyway, architecture. One of the biggest issues that we see with folks that struggle at below $2,000, maybe you're at $800, maybe you're at $1,500 a day. One of the biggest issues we see is the reliance on non-evergreen material. Now, whether that is ads, whether that is business objectives, whether that is audiences or campaign types, one of the biggest issues that we face when we don't have evergreen efforts is we're not really able to leverage the machine learning over time. And if we can't leverage the machine learning over time, we're basically solving same problems over and over and over again. Now, let me ask you this. How much further do you think you're going to get if you have to start over again every couple of days? It's going to be very difficult for you to move forward, which is ultimately what we want to do. We want to get to a place where we're able to stack win on top of win, get incremental gains. And the honest truth is, if you're stuck at $1,000, you're not going to get to $3,000 because you work 3 times harder. It generally happens because you work half as much. There's something in the architecture that is forcing you to work. You are more reliant on the output of your work than on the machine. And so when we talk about architecture, one of the biggest things that we need to do is really lean into 3 core absolute principles. Number 1, test and execute at the broadest audiences that you can. Interest groups have been obsolete effectively on the platform at scale for years. And we can go into that, a whole other thing, and maybe that'll be another video that I shoot. I'm going to put it down in my notes. Interest V2. That's absolutely going down. But I'll give you a 30-second piece in here. And if you want to see that video, obviously subscribe and you'll be the first one to see it as soon as it comes out. But interest groups, the technology behind assembling an interest group on Facebook has not changed since the implementation of the conversion pixel. The implementation of the conversion pixel allowed for conversion campaigns in an optimized CPM environment. The long and short of it is the way that Facebook puts an interest group together hasn't changed in years, which means the effectiveness of it hasn't changed in years. And ultimately, if the way it's built and the efficacy of it hasn't changed in years, then the fact that we haven't been supposed to use it since 2018, 2017 hasn't changed in years. Another thing that's a big deal is reliance on retargeting and complex funnels. The honest truth is, those become liabilities, especially when you're trying to build, because you end up making Facebook reliant on getting higher and higher quality traffic to capitalize on. When you're doing that, what you're ultimately doing is limiting the ability for these solutions to grow, especially if you're reliant on an audience pool of retargeting. Well, the more and more reliant on retargeting you get, the fewer and fewer people you're actually going to be able to retarget. And honestly, I've optimized the shit out of brands' ad accounts to the point where they almost had to close their doors. They were getting an amazing return on Facebook and they were unable to stay in business. Because the honest truth is, the last point of the architecture is understand where Facebook comes into your overall funnel. It is not a full funnel solution for most brands. It is not the only source of traffic. It is not the only source of revenue. Your customer service can make as much money as your Facebook ads can. Your email campaigns, your SEO, your search, all of these things come into play. And if you ask Facebook to do all of those things, it means they're not going to do any one of them very well. Second thing that we're going to get to here is testing. So the testing. What we need to do when we're testing is, first off, understand that if we're not able to invest enough to test our way through an entire test, then we cannot be completely confident in the outcome of that test. Also, if we do not have the budget to afford to work all the way through a test, then that test is not something we can afford to start at all. What we need to do is understand what test can we afford to actually see through to the end. What test is actually going to have an outcome for us that we want. Then we can have a test that doubles our business and we're going to be wrong 80% of the time, but that might be effective. I've absolutely grown brands where I was supposed to lose 7, 8 times out of 10. And if I had to win more than once every 60 to 90 days, I wasn't working hard enough, because easy wins don't move the needle nearly as much as big swings. You cannot move mountains if you worry about the pebbles. And that is something that I want for you to take away. So in testing model, we have to understand how much of our budget can we allocate towards testing, and are we confident in our ability to have a 100% confidence outcome in our testing model with a thing that we can implement at scale. If the answer to any of those questions is no, then we should not be testing in that fashion. We need to readjust what we're doing before we get started. Some of the biggest issues people do is they test mildly here and there, and they might be right or they might be wrong, or they get some out of context win that lacks overall confidence, or they get something, well, it won on $100, why can't it work on 1,000? It's because you got lucky in a few days and you completely ignored statistical significance. If you're not following the scientific method, you are more than likely going to lose far more often than you're going to win, and the wins that you're going to receive are not going to pay for the losses. And that's a big thing. If you lose 4 out of 5 times, 4 out of 10 times, and they're absolute losses. Let's say you lose 2 out of 10 times, but they're absolute losses, and the other 8 wins cannot pay for those 2 losses, then you have ultimately wasted everybody's time and money. The last thing that I really want to get to is what I call picking a lane or optimization. Your ad account should not be set up to do a lot of business objectives. How many products are you really selling? How many services are you actually trying to make money on? How many objectives for your business are you asking your Facebook to do? And how many of them is it doing well? Let me ask you this. If you have one salesperson trying to be an expert in 5 different products for people that are ready to go and people that have never met you, the likelihood of that person being able to deliver you a consistent result across every single one of those objectives is absolutely zero. There's no difference between Facebook and a real person. It's a little bit smarter than a real person in its ability to understand where somebody is, because they are controlling the customer journey, which is why we don't need to worry about retargeting anyway. And definitely the multi-stage, like inform, then convince, and then get them to buy thing that people preach on email has no business inside of Facebook. But pick a lane. What is the one thing that you're actually asking Facebook to do so that you can invest 90, 95, 100% of your resources on doing that one thing extremely well? The honest truth is, most of the people that I see struggling at $1,500 a day, at 1,000 a day, at 500 a day, don't know what single product they're trying to sell. They don't have a robust testing methodology. And ultimately, they've got a very complex ad account that's targeting different lookalikes of the week and a couple interest groups, and they're getting retargeting. They're trying to get money wherever they can instead of investing in getting a solution that'll work for them forever. You are not going to get your business to $5,000, $10,000, $50,000, $100,000 days if you can't commit to doing one thing well. So my ultimate advice to you is if you are less than $2,000, first off, ask me questions and I'll help you out. Second, simplify, spend as much money you can and in as few spaces you can. Understand that you're not even supposed to be profitable on Facebook ads for a little while. No business is profitable in the first few months, especially if you have to build any infrastructure or invest anything into growth. Whether it is your time or your money, you are in the hole for weeks or months. That is a realistic expectation. If you can't afford that, then Facebook isn't the space for you to be paying money. Ultimately, you need to figure out how to get that money organically so that you can then throw media at it and make it work bigger. Facebook ads is nothing more than an amplified organic strategy when done well. And remember, you're never going to move a mountain if you worry about the pedals. That being said, YouTube says you might like these videos right here. And if you really found value and stuff, go ahead and subscribe. That way you don't miss anything. Until next time, once again, hi, I'm Charlie. I'll see you on the internet.